Live. Broadcasting live on the Double Wide Network. It's time for The Real Deal. Join the Ambassador as special guest hosts as they put together great guests and honest commentary on a range of issues. One of their main topics will be preserving Native American tributes in sports team nicknames. Also avid fans of music and the arts, and they'll always make time for a great song or two. Now, it's time for The Real Deal. Here's your host, the Ambassador.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Real Deal. This is the Ambassador in the Camelback Towers in beautiful downtown Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm with my hosts, the Mr. Kyle Pratt, the son of the infamous Dave Pratt, is commanding the ship with me as well. Hi, Kyle.
How's it going, Ambassador?
Ambassador's all in. And then, of course, I have my other co-host here, or co-producer, I'm sorry, and she is the lovely, the indisputable, the irrefutable, the unbelievable, the beautiful Wendy West, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, thank you. I'm really flattered here. Wow, I'm going to get it verklempt.
She's a wonderful lady, ladies and gentlemen, and the Pratt family, we can't thank them enough. And this is a special show tonight. We are being filmed. Aren't we, Kyle?
Yes, we are. First time I'm here.
First time. The Real Deal's being filmed for a long-term documentary by Bobby Bedrock.
That's Bobby Newrock, Chief.
Bobby Newrock, sorry. I was close. He come in to film The Real Deal. Our sponsor, we got to thank our sponsor, Gray's Propane, with offices in Northern Arizona, a family-owned business, and UMate International, umate.com. That's my own company, and we sell organic materials all over the world, and we produce them up on Navajo. Make sure if you don't have the new app for Star Worldwide, ladies and gentlemen, you got to download it, right?
Yep. To get the newest update, you re-download the app, and it should take care of all technical problems.
Right. Please do that, because Star Worldwide, ladies and gentlemen, is the fastest growing, largest growing internet radio station in the country. 200 shows, 5 million listeners. Kyle, tell everybody who's number one here.
That would be The Real Deal.
That's right. Let's hear it, ladies and gentlemen. And that's because of you, too.
Oh. It's because I put my 5 minutes in once a week. We're good.
We want to thank all of our listeners all over the country, Native Americans, all Americans, coast to coast, all the schools that are under attack by Hal Britter, this fake fraud, total crook, not an Indian, and then, of course, Adidas. Adidas is a $17 billion company, and I hope everybody burns their shoes because this is the same thing that happened to the Jews in Germany. It's social and cultural genocide. Burn the books, get rid of them, and pretty soon in 100 years, Native Americans will just be Americans. Again, I want to thank all the teams, the Kansas City Chiefs, Washington Redskins, Golden State Warriors, Atlanta Braves, Cleveland Indians, Chicago Blackhawks, for listening and honoring Native Americans by using the names. They're coming after you, all the teams. Washington Redskins is first. Thank God we got Dan Snyder. I'm going to say a few words to, and we got a great guest in studio tonight, and I'm going to introduce him here in a little bit, but he's a good friend and a business associate of mine. But first I want to shout out to my Navajo brothers and sisters on the Navajo Nation. Yate She Dene. Ambassador Dennis Yellowhorse in She. Harishpanana, Hakwetzalah, 505 Redskins, Hakwetzalah, Flagstaff Redskins. Thank you for listening. Akehe, Dan Snyder, the gatekeeper, Dan Snyder, ladies and gentlemen. And this Hal Britter and Adidas are a bunch of coyotes. They're not good people. And I want my co-host tonight to say a few words. His name is Mark Burke. I'm going to formally introduce him here after the monologue. But I want him to say something in Spanish. He speaks fluent Spanish to our listeners with the Pascuayaki tribe, the Pima tribe, the Isleta tribe in New Mexico, and all the tribes in California. if you would. So, Mark, I would appreciate it.
Claro que sí, Don Dennis. Bienvenidos a nuestra audiencia hispanoparlante, a todos nuestros patrocinadores y todos los radio oyentes a través de la nación del programa The Real Deal con nuestro anfitrión, el embajador.
Thank you. That sounded good.
That was hot.
You didn't expect that to come out of this gringo's face, did you?
No. Wow.
I was born in Guatemala, don't I look it?
That's right. You were
Wow.
you were when you said you were 5 years old. You've been in 5 different countries.
I exactly right. I got back to the U.S. in first grade in Eugene, Oregon, and I thought, wow, I look like everybody else for the first time.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to formally introduce Mark here, but I think what we're going to do, Kyle, is take a short break and tee up our first song, if you would, please. Okay, we're back. That was the Rolling Stones with the lovely Lisa Fisher, who's a friend of mine, and also the late, great Bobby Keys, the saxophone player, who was a very dear friend of mine that passed away last year. I figured, what the hell, this show's being filmed by Robert and his crew, wonderful people. I figured, you know what, we got the number one show, we may as well have the number one rock and roll band in the world.
There you go.
Playing real deal music tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So with that being said, I want to introduce my first guest. He's an associate of Jay Stryker. You folks have heard me talk about Jay Stryker. They're one of the old Wall Street firms, family owned, and the oldest private family owned firm on Wall Street, actually. And he's also the owner of Primary Water Technologies, and we're going to talk about that tonight. The first water exploration and production company focused on locating and drilling for Earth-generated primary water. And with Jay Stryker, a co-founder of Blue Planet Group, whose founder and CEO Merlin Yockstick should be coming on later, I hope. And Mark lived in 5 continents, as he said earlier, before he started the first grade. He is a graduate of the University of Utah and received his Master of International Management from Thunderbird right here in Glendale, Arizona, and that's a great, well-known business school. And at that time, it was known as the American Graduate School of International Management, and now a part of Arizona State. And the nation's only graduate business school focused on international management. Mark is a former Marine, Semper Fi.
Hoorah. Semper Fi, thank you for all your help, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you. And he'd been in the Marine Corps for several years during the Reagan years, and his parents retired in southern Arizona. So when he comes to the Grand Canyon State, he comes to see the ambassador. So that's what he's doing here. Mark, why don't you talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about in all the things that you and I have been involved in?
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Dennis. I've listened to your first show when you first came on, and we've got the word out there in New York and the East Coast. But, you know, before we get into water, I have to make a confession.
You do?
I'm a lifelong Dallas Cowboys fan.
Oh, my God.
You know, when you grow up overseas, you know, and you see that star, and back in the day, you know, it was Cowboys. But
Chief, don't forget he served for our country. We can forgive him.
We forgive you. We definitely forgive you.
But I married into an old Maryland family, dyed in the wool, Redskin fans. So you can imagine what it's been like for the last 25 years, especially on Thanksgiving. And many a day, my brothers-in-law have forced me to sit outside while the Redskins were on television, bundle up in my coat, just cursing me. And so I am probably one of the few Dallas Cowboy fans who actually knows the Redskin fight song. And
you do?
We could sing it here. First time live, a Cowboy sings that song.
Let's hear it.
What do you think?
Let's hear it, Kyle. Huh?
Yeah, let's go.
I mean, the only other song I know is the Marine Corps hymn, which you really have to sing loud. So I will try to back off a little bit. But hey, if you know the words, sing along with me. Hail to the Redskins, hail victory, braves on the warpath, fight for old DC. Beat 'em, swamp 'em, we want a touchdown. Beat 'em, stomp 'em, we want a touchdown. Fight on until you've won the sons of Washington. Rah, rah, rah.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
They will never let me live that down. And now it's not only on radio, but it's been videotaped. So that hurts. That really hurts.
You know what they say, once it's online, it's out there forever.
It's out there forever, you know. But what would the NFL be without Redskin and Cowboys? I mean, what are we going to do? Change them to the pansies and wallflowers or something?
I'm happy you brought that up. Chief, can you just say one thing? Why is the Redskins so important to you?
I love the Redskins because I grew up at Navajo. I speak Navajo. My wife was a Navajo. She passed away. And we have schools on the Navajo Nation that are called the Red Mesa Redskins. And you're going to see them when we go there this weekend. And Tuba City Warriors and the Shiprock Chiefs and the Braves. And all of these schools are filled with Native Americans, mostly Navajo kids. And they wear the jerseys, and to them, they're so proud of these schools. Their teachers are Navajos or Hopis.
So are you saying that these people that are Navajo themselves, they wear this shirt and feel proud?
Absolutely.
So is that funny? Are you saying that the white populace is trying to tell the Indians again what to be proud of, what of not, or to be of?
That's exactly what they're doing. They're going around and trying to tell Indians, Native Americans, we know what's good for you.
I think, didn't we hear that before 100 years ago? And how did that work out for your nation, Chief?
It didn't work at all. It's like sending in the cavalry.
So the audience is clear. What are you saying? Is it all right that a football team uses a proud heritage of warriors?
Absolutely. We consider this, Robert, a badge of honor. We consider it a badge of honor. And it's like I said many, many times on this show, hey, I'm just here, I'm just the messenger. All I care about is getting the word out, telling the truth, and delivering the message. That's all I care about. And if I can get some more sponsors, which I hope I do, then I can pay for this show because I've been funding it for a year out of my own pocket, and I appreciate the Pratt family so much for hanging in there with me. But that's my whole deal here, and I'm here to tell the truth, and that's why we went to number one, because people want to hear the other side. And they said, "Hey, this guy's got something to say besides this name change BS." And it's the real deal.
Chief, I just want to say, so if the audience isn't understanding, this means so much to this person that he pulls money out of his pocket to make sure you hear the truth. So for corporations and businesses in Nevada, Arizona, Utah, this is a wonderful area and an opportunity for you to contact people that care. Advertisers or dollars are very hard to come by. This is the one to do. So call the chief and call the agency and call this network. Thank you so much, Chief. Let's get to some water here because you have an incredible guest.
I do. Go ahead.
Well, along the same lines, I think about 3-4 years ago, I was approached by a gentleman out of California talking about a new water paradigm to help solve their water crisis out there as well as globally. And, I think the last science course I took was about 10th grade chemistry. I'm pretty sure it was a D, maybe D+. And so, I listened to him, and having been in business a long time, I'm a practical-minded person. And when he indicated this was decades, if not centuries-old concept that the Earth itself generates water. In fact, it is the original origin of all the water on our planet. And that the simple bedtime story we're told from kindergarten on, that all the atmospheric water is all that there is, I began to question that. It took me about 6 months of due diligence, and I discovered, yes, in fact, many scientists, especially the astrophysicists, geochemists, geophysicists, fully understand that hydrogen and oxygen combine in the deep parts of our mantle in the Earth, and through outgassing of all of our oil, gas, minerals comes water. And if you take granite into a laboratory and take it down to great pressure and temperature, you get 9% water. And now that technology is catching up, in fact, they've quite well proven about 400 miles down is this aqueous hydrous zone where water is created. And we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour centrifugally, and it pushes it toward the hard crust. Sometimes it comes flying out in vapor form through volcanoes, and scientists love to run around and capture that and look at the isotopes of volcanic vapors. Sometimes it reaches as hot temperature if it rises quickly, but most of it comes up and cools and begins to move through the crust. This water can be located, and that's what we consider ourselves to be on the tip of the spear of the revolution in water that is now underway.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That really is. And you know what really blew my mind was when you were up here a couple of weeks ago, and him and I are both Jay Stryker. We're both involved with Jay Stryker, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you brought the CEO of Jay Stryker, my partner Tom Brown, up to Navajo 3 times now over the last few years. We're very interested in the economic development plans that are going on up there. We believe just about everything starts with water. If you don't have water, you don't have food, you don't have health, and we're a part of solving that problem. So I've really enjoyed some of your last few shows where you've had key officials and business people involved in economic development in Navajo talking about, hey, we're open for business. So,
Chief, and I'm so sorry because some of us don't know, is there water on the Navajo reservation? And if there is, isn't that an important asset And isn't that something the Indians would hold on for generations?
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to do when we meet Peter, Mike Che.
I have to say to the audience, I'm so magically blessed. The chief is bringing us to a wonderful meeting. He will elaborate on it. It's so amazing if you come in and station and hear what's happening with these stories. Right now, you're going to hear about something known as water. You would think it's the right of all people. And the Navajo people that have given so much to this nation, you would think that their water would be theirs. Chief, is there any plausible future where the government or people of special interest would want to take the Navajo's water?
Absolutely. And about 5 years ago, my Che, Peter McDonald, was at my home. He stays at my home. And it was late one night, and we were sitting up talking and having a cup of coffee.
I'm sorry, Chief. Peter McDonald, is he something, I remember that name, something to do with codes and saving America from the Nazis.
Right.
We went to the Indians to help us because the Nazis had a system known as Enigma, and they broke everything. And it's funny, if you guys don't know this, the Chief's going to tell you a little story how the Navajo Nation won World War II.
Right. The Navajo code talkers were brought in. These were young Navajo boys, and they were all enlisted in the Marine Corps. Navajos are warriors.
Hoorah.
They want to be...
Hoorah, Semper Fi, Chief.
Yeah, they want to be in the Marine Corps. They didn't want to be in the Air Force. They didn't want to be in the Army. They wanted to join the Marine Corps. So when they joined the Marine Corps, they were out at Camp Pendleton, which is out by San Diego. And they all rounded all these Navajos up.
What year is this about? I'm sorry for people who don't know their history.
Probably, I would say, what do you think, Mark, 50s?
No, 1940. 41.
Okay, yeah. Okay, 40, 41. So all these kids get out there, and Peter lied to get into the Marine Corps. He told him he was, instead of being 17 or 18, he was only like 16. But he wanted to go and fight. And so he gets down there, and they take him in this room. And him and another Navajo kid, and they said, the drill sergeant said, come on, get in this vehicle here. And they didn't know where they were going. And you know how tough those drill sergeants are. Oh, my God. Screaming at them and telling them, get your butt in that damn truck. And so he took him into this room, and he could hear these Navajos chanting. And they were walking down this hall of this barracks. And he could hear these Navajos chanting. And he says to the other one in Navajo, he says, that sounds like Navajo. So he walks in there, and this room's full of Navajo kids. Navajo boys that enlisted in the Marines. And the boarding schools would literally tell these kids when they were going to boarding school, you don't talk Navajo anymore, you talk English. And if you talk Navajo, we're going to wash your mouth out with soap.
So if people have forgotten, part of the American experience was to make sure the Navajo would forget their past and their language. And the reason the Nazis could never understand this, the Navajo didn't have a written tradition.
Right.
Navajo had an oral tradition. So for the Nazis that might have been brilliant for all their studies is if you not know, you have no understanding. The Navajo had a language nobody knew unless you were Navajo in 1940. Sorry, Chief, please continue.
No, that's okay. And so these kids, they got them in there, and they says, we want to develop a code using Navajo, your language. And they says, we ain't going to get in trouble for talking Navajo? They said, no, sir. No, kid. No, you're not going to get in trouble.
And Peter was involved in this?
He was there, yeah. He was one of the ones. And then he became the president of the Navajo Code Talkers. That's who you're going to meet with this weekend.
Wasn't there some movie with that guy, Nicolas Cage?
Yeah, Wind Talkers.
Okay, America. And if you're listening, 5 million people, Wind Talkers, history, Navajo Nation saved America, and now we want to take their water. Chief, continue.
Yeah, and so that's what happened. And then, so he was very upset because the powers that be, John Kyle, who retired, he was a senator here in Arizona with John McCain, and he was a water rights lawyer. And he went up there and he offered the Navajo Nation $300 million to relinquish their water rights.
That sounds a lot, doesn't it? $300 million.
Yeah, I mean, that's nothing for their water rights.
That's nothing.
It's like $1, and so he says, I'm furious. And they hired a big lobbying firm and blah, blah, blah.
And this happened at your house?
Yeah.
Peter told you that he was furious that this is happening again?
Yeah, at my home. Yeah. And it was late at night, and I said, hey, I'll help you. And because I'm down here, I'm removed from up there, so I don't get everything that's going on up there.
When you say down here, you're in Arizona. Where's up there?
Up in Navajo Nation in northern Arizona.
Northern Arizona.
Yeah. So anyway, I took it upon myself to help him and got him radio time and did whatever I had to do to get the word out. And he did. And after about a month, we shut them down. And they paid a lobbying firm $500,000 to get this thing through. And when Peter went on the radio, man, the Navajos listened and they said, "Oh shit, we're getting screwed royally here." And they actually went to Window Rock and they were pissed. They went to Window Rock after the current president and he was running out the back door. I'm serious. Because he knew the Navajo people were very upset because he wants to sell their damn water rights.
So the audience doesn't forget. Do you remember this president's name that was running out the back door?
Yeah, Ben Shelley.
Oh, Ben Shelley. Hi, if you're listening to this, I just want you to know that people remember what you did. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, he got a rude awakening. I don't blame anything on him because these guys were whining and dining the whole tribal council and the president and telling them what a great deal this was. So accept the $300 million, relinquish your water rights, and call it a day. And thank God that him and I and other people got it stopped and dead in its tracks. And even the Hopi people who disagree with Peter because of the land dispute for many, many years said, Jesus, Peter McDonald's against that water rights settlement because they were part of it. They were going to get, a couple $100 million or whatever. And they said if Peter McDonald's against it, it's bad for us, the Hopis. And so that's what stopped it.
So that's what's so amazing, Chief. You have this wonderful history and this constant with water, and then we have your wonderful guest. How do you feel about all this?
It fits exactly into what our message has been to Navajo and worldwide as we prepare to roll this out, and that it's all about water independence and water security. We've been told for a long time that this water is limited, it's non-renewable, and of course the fearmongers love to play on that. Just as they played on peak oil about 10 years ago, now the new fear is peak water, and you see it especially in California. And all they're looking to do for solutions is to, again, steal more water from rivers, build more dams, and all of the long-distance plumbing that we call it that goes with that. And in a drying world, if that's certainly the case we have now, that's just not a sustainable enterprise. We have many thousands of primary water wells drilled around the world. It's very clear that ancient man understood the concept that water was created. Chief Kawila of the Kawila Indians, he founded the first wells in Palm Springs area with his staff. I call him the Moses of the Americas. The many Native Americans, as I researched this, actually assisted the white man and Europeans as they crossed the continent to locate this water. So unfortunately, it seems to have been another of those pieces of ancient knowledge that's been lost. But as I speak to communities and seek the older among them, I discover everywhere, even including the Kurds in northern Iraq, they do remember they had people who knew how to locate this water, and it was specific type of water, and it was always potable. It was without bacteria, and so that's our story, and we believe we can make the Navajo Nation and reservations across the U.S. and Californians from north to south independent from the canal systems and the monopolies that run the water in their lives to a considerable extent.
No, that's great, and I believe you. I mean, I've seen it.
Absolutely.
I've seen it up there at was it Tehachapi?
Recently in Tehachapi, we drilled 2 wells at 6,000 feet, where obviously there's no aquifer.
There's no aquifer up there.
No aquifer, and there's been no water and no.
And they said, and the people said, "There's no water here.
No water. Why would you drill there, right?" And 2 wells there drilled, located and supervised by Paul Power. Over 50 years he's done this and was trained by Steve Reese, a German immigrant to California in the 1920s who drilled 753 documented wells of this type in the Southwest and around the world. And he hit copious flow at less than 100 feet at 6,000 feet.
Wow. That's incredible.
So I'm curious, is this some kind of how does this knowledge be restrained from the public?
No, great question. I had to ask myself that and really get back into studying science. But you can go to a government website of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, National Weather Service, who we all rely on, and you look at their vocabulary and you look up what they call it primary water, and in parentheses they say juvenile.
Juvenile?
Juvenile, which is a more geological term. You see that in the textbooks. And you're like, juvenile, right? But they use primary water and juvenile secondary. And it says water formed chemically within the earth and brought to the surface in intrusive rock. We are known as rock drillers. Wait a minute, rock is impervious. Why are you drilling there? Well, we don't go for aquifer water, which is recycled atmospheric water, which over time becomes dirty and certainly polluted by big agriculture and its fertilizers and pesticides.
Right.
We go for pure new water sources. And so, if you look for it. So I don't consider it a conspiracy other than one, a conspiracy of ignorance. We all have to work harder ourselves to understand there are solutions to just about everything we have. Stop listening to fear mongers. Get out, roll up your sleeves, and solve problems. And water is, the revolution of water really is at hand, and we're the tip of the spear on that.
Right. That's awesome. Are we going to be able to get Merlin on tonight?
Absolutely. He's in Philadelphia waiting for us to call him. So
okay, well, I think what we need to do is, if you would, Kyle, get a hold of the pilots, Real Deal Airlines, ladies and gentlemen, Real Deal Airlines, and tell them to kick the tires, light the fires. But I don't.
Yeah, Merlin Yakstick is the CEO of Blue Planet Group, who you introduced earlier.
Right.
He has a long history in water. In the early 90s, after building and selling his first company in the educational sector, he launched the enhanced bottled water category, creating such bottles as labels as Wild Water for wild oats, Essentia, which you see today at Whole Foods, Nordstrom Water, that whole category he launched in the early 90s. He sold that in 2005. And 2010, he returned to Iowa, his home state, and he discovered it is the 49th out of 50th in worst water quality in the nation.
Right.
He grew up on a farm. He said, what have we done to ourselves? And he said, you know what, at that point, I said, if I'm at my age going to start something new, it's going to really have an impact. And so he created Blue Planet Group and refounding a bold America to solve exactly this problem.
Isn't that amazing? You have to come to this radio show because the political process will only tell you about Flint, Michigan. Are you telling me this man of water went back to his home state and the water was so atrocious he was overwhelmed?
Absolutely. And he's going to solve that problem.
So let me tell you, America, Flint is not the only place with bad water. So listen to the chief. The chief's about to tell you something, and come on, Rack.
That's right. We're going to take a short break, get the airplane ready, and but you know what? I want to tell you guys something. Everybody's here. You know what the problem with these name changers that want to change the names of these teams? You know what their problem is?
You can't handle the truth.
Thank you. We're back. We're going to continue. We have a great guest in Philadelphia that's coming on, and Real Deal Airlines has us there, so we're in good shape. I want you to formally introduce Merlin, if you would, please, Mark.
Yes. As I said before the break, Merlin Yakstick, originally from Iowa. And in the early 90s, launched, in effect, the enhanced and structured bottled water category in the United States. Initially, it was wild water for the Wild Oats food chain, organic food chain, and later it became Essentia for Whole Foods and other brands such as Nordstrom Water and so forth. And, since he sold that, he returned to Iowa, his home state, and he discovered in 2010 that it is the 49th out of 50th in water quality, the worst. And you can imagine, because of decades of the chemical fertilizer, the synthetics, all of the other things we're doing in our agriculture has ruined the soil and the water of Iowa. And so he decided then and there, if he was going to do something at that age in his life, he was going to solve a real problem, and he calls it his massively transformative purpose, MTP.
I'll be darned. Merlin, this is the ambassador. Welcome to my show.
Well, I'm delighted to be here from, Philadelphia here, the city of brotherly love.
Absolutely. I've been there many times.
Welcome, Merlin. I gave a brief introduction in your background, and so why don't you tell us a little bit about what brought you to forming Blue Planet Group and what your vision is of where we're going to take this?
Well, Blue Planet Group has been a vision that I've been holding for many, many years. And truthfully, as Mark mentioned, when I went back to Iowa, I did not go back to start another business. I went to give back and to get back involved in my very first business, which was educational publishing. And
Mark, what year was that you returned?
That was in 2010, May of 2010, soon to be 6 years. It's hard to believe.
Wow, Merlin, that's awesome.
Yeah, how fast time flies, when you're having fun, as they say. But, I went back and, as Mark mentioned, realized how toxic the water was. And I still have a lot of friends and family back there. And so I started developing systems for them to keep them from drinking the municipal water that was contaminated. And so as I started putting systems together, their friends said, well, we need one of those. And the next thing I know, I'm back in the water business. And then I look at the state of Iowa and realize that while the water is toxic, so is the food, so is the agricultural system, the big agricultural farming and the land and the soil. Two of the fundamentals that are, what keep us healthy as Americans, and then looked at the rest of the country and said, well, while Iowa may be one of the worst, it's really no different than the rest of the country.
I'm sure.
So we got to do something about that, and that's what I set out to do back in, that little old state of Iowa.
Well, that's good, and I don't know if Mark told you about my company, Humate International, humate.com, and I produce organic minerals in the Navajo Nation, and it brings the soil back to life. We can take contaminated soil. I testified in front of the U.S. Senate back in 2010. There was 300,000 proposals submitted to the federal government on the BP oil spill, and there was only two of us called to testify, myself and Kevin Costner. And my whole deal is green, give it back, get the soil healthy. But, I have a product that can do that, but you got to have good water.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a pretty good marriage, don't you think, Mark, back in Iowa, in terms of the primary
Absolutely.
water that we have the ability to bring to the surface, and the humic and fulvic acids, I'm very familiar with them, and you're absolutely right, Dennis. They are a major secret and solution to the land and the water and the health of humanity, certainly here in the United States.
Yeah, my background has been in mining, and I have the largest deposit in the world. And it's up in New Mexico, and I get it out and ship it out, and one of my biggest customers is the Dole Food Company.
Dennis, can you tell us, when you sort of just jumped by that, How long you been in mining? How do you know this is good dirt? Have you been in it a few days, a few months?
No, hell, I'm a third generation. My family.
Third generation. So you know dirt.
Yeah, and this ain't dirt. This is minerals.
Well, explain that. Some of the audience gets confused. Dirt. What is this? Deep underground? Is this a shallow mining? Can you just give us 2 seconds?
It's shallow mining, but it's pre-coal. It's in the carbon chain, Robert. So if you start over here in the carbon chain at the beginning, you have humus, you have peat, you have humate, then you have the lignite coals, then you have the subbituminous coals, metallurgical coals, and if you went on out there, you'd have diamonds and oil and diamonds. It's the carbon chain, and we're way at the beginning. And this stuff it's prehistoric animal and plant life that formed these deposits up in New Mexico. And I was just fortunate enough to find them, and Native Americans would come by when I was just a little kid and say, hey, they would tell my family, can you save this humate, because my family is mining coal. And they would say, can you save this humate for us because we use it on our crops? And my dad would say, oh, yeah, sure. We'll
so this humate was a byproduct you guys didn't even recognize was anything back in the day.
Nobody knew it, and then I figured it out.
But the Indians knew it.
The Indians knew it, absolutely, for a lot longer than anybody else. And that's what they used as a growing medium. But still, at the end of the day, I mean, you got to have good water, and that's where Merlin, that's where you come in. And I think it will be a great marriage for us. I absolutely agree.
So what's happening right now, Merlin, in 2016, where you're at?
Well, we're just launching our company, the Blue Planet Group. We've got a number of different directions we're going, but our focus is on healthy food, water, and wellness. We're building a statewide model in Iowa. We've got a 99-county, 100-city initiative that we're launching, and actually launching on the 4th of July. That's the official launch because it coincides with a new nonprofit that we just formed called Refounding a Bold America. So we've got a nonprofit and a for-profit. Our for-profit is a B corporation, which means that we get to give half by law without taxation back to other like-minded organizations and socially responsible organizations. So half of what we make from selling water, if you will, that we believe belongs to us all. And so if we can make $1 on a bottle of water, we're going to give half of that back and support this new direction that we're talking about, starting with the fundamentals of food, water, and wellness. Once we begin getting things launched in the Midwest, and of course we're going to expand them across the country and show the country, one, how to be the healthiest state in the nation, which is something that the governor launched back in 2011, shortly after I got back to Iowa. So if we can make Iowa the healthiest state, then we can make all the rest of the states healthy. And I'm going to suggest that it really begins with the things that Dennis is talking about, along with the water, some very simple lifestyle changes, but then healthy food. If you can create a healthy soil, given healthy materials to regenerate the soil, and then a healthy water that is non-toxic, which is one of the things that we have the ability to bring to the surface with primary water, then you can create healthy food, and then you can create healthy people. And if you can do those fundamental things, then we think we can take our country back, if you will, and get the health back into our populace. So we're just focusing on the fundamentals, not trying to, well, we are trying to change the world, but it's not like we're trying to do more than we can comprehend or what's doable, but just focusing on the fundamentals of what need to be done.
That's great. I can't wait to meet you in person. Mark has told me so many good things about you over the past couple of years, and I hope you can get into Scottsdale. I know you were out in California, and I'm sorry I missed you, but I hope you can get into Scottsdale, and then I'll bring you right into the studio on Wednesday, and you just tell them the real deal.
Dennis, I have to say, Merlin, when you are doing something, I would love to bring the crew out with the chief and Mark and really be there firsthand. I'm curious, how is it you and Mark are tied together? Because he's so fascinating with his water technology, and he's a true believer in the earth supplies for itself. How do you two know each other?
Well, actually, Mark should probably be telling the story. But, Mark called me up one day. It was on a Sunday afternoon, as I remember, and introduced himself to me and asked me if I knew anything about primary water, and I didn't. And he said, well, I've just seen your bio and what you have done with enhanced and bottled water. And he said, you're exactly the kind of guy we have been looking for. So here's what I'm about, and if you're available in the next 24 or 48 hours, I will stop doing what I'm doing. I will come to see you.
He is a Marine, Merlin. Semper Fi. When they see a beachhead, they go for it.
Well, that describes
Even in Iowa.
Mark.
Even in Iowa.
Yeah. That
cool.
describes him exactly. So it was actually less than 48 hours that he showed up at my office. I office at the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls, and he said, I'd like to take your morning if you have it available. And I said, I do. I will make it available. And we ended up the entire day. In fact, I wasn't sure. I wanted to let him go, quite frankly, because what he had told me was so interesting and so phenomenal. And I knew as I was on board, I just needed to know some of the details about how we could tap into it. And, after a few weeks of conversation, he clarified that. And I think in a matter of weeks, we were sitting down writing a letter of intent, and we've been, bosom brothers ever since. So he's been a delight to meet and talk with. And, he's just brought an incredible technology to us that, he knows how to bring it to the surface. We know how to turn it into a commodity that, like I say, we want to give as much back as what we make. And so it looks like one of those beautiful relationships.
The word is synergy, and between yourself, Dennis, Mark, and what you're working on, I can tell you, between soil, clean water, and water that is accessible, it's called synergy. Merlin, it's so wonderful. I just want to tell you, with your permission, I would like to come down with Mark and Dennis and do a segment with you guys and the cameras and let the world know that Flint is not the only place in America. In the middle of America with an all-farmer populace and the urbans, we still get poisoned water. Chief, it's amazing how you bring these people together and you tell the story of everybody. I'm amazed, and I'm so happy that I'm here. Mark, Merlin, I'm just grinning from end to end. I'm so excited.
Well, things just kind of fall my way. I mean, I just kind of, I don't plan it out. It just happens,
Well, how did you meet Mark then?
It was just,
Well, that was through Jay Stryker.
Yeah, through Jay Stryker.
And, in fact, a gentleman named Kyle Walker here.
Yeah, Kyle Walker and Tom Brown. And pretty soon I'm with these people in New York, and I go to New York, and they come out here, and they tell all their associates, they say, man, you got to meet the chief.
The chief.
Yeah, you got to meet Dennis. And so sooner or later I meet Mark, and I meet all these other guys, and they're just wonderful people. And so one thing leads to another, and away we go. And I introduce you to the infamous Jack Berkman.
Absolutely, in Washington.
That's
He's all over
right.
television.
You have to tell the audience, I don't even know who's the infamous Jack Berkman.
Jack Berkman, ladies and gentlemen, is a radio TV personality in Washington, D.C. He's a lobbyist, and he's a good friend of the chief, and he's listened to the show. Thanks, Jack. And he's a great guy, isn't he? I mean, this guy's
Absolutely.
he's well read, and he's just a really cool guy. And I want to get him on the radio show, by the way, and I'll get him on. And he's cool, and he loves the chief. And we had lunch at in Washington D.C. and dinner, and hung out with Mark, and it was fun. And he's just a great guy, and you'll meet him. You'll meet him when we go to D.C. You'll meet him because we are going there.
Chief, we're going there, and the whole world's going to see it. Merlin, tell us what's happening right now with the next point. It's 2016. What's the next point in 2017? Where will you be at?
Merlin, this is Mark. Let me jump in real quick. We talk about economic development as you have on the show, and in economic development there's push and there's pull. The push is the upstream. We know how to locate water, and then it's what do you do with the water? Get it to the end user. And that's where, midstream and downstream, as I call it, is where Merlin has been extremely successful. But Merlin, you could talk about the pull and the technologies that you have invested in heavily recently that will go right to the consumer that I think these guys will be amazed to hear about.
Well, what we're looking at doing is literally disrupting the entire water delivery system, if you will, because as the other gentleman, I forget his name that was speaking, that has been very nice in his compliments.
That's Bobby Newrock.
Bobby, okay, Bobby. Now that I know who I'm talking to, but as you mentioned, because everything is so contaminated. I mean, America is Flint, or Flint is America, however you want to put it. And by the way, lead poisoning is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just one of the toxic metals and the toxic chemistries that all of America is consuming. And it's one of the reasons we're having some of the challenge with our kids, with their ADD, autism, and, the chronic disease. 1 out of every 2 of our kids in America's schools today have a chronic disease. So, when you really get back to it comes back to the toxicity in our food and water. So here again, when I got back to Iowa and saw what the state of Iowa was and realized that it was, no different in the rest of the country, I started looking at a new delivery system that could take whatever water was available. This was a little bit Mark showing up with his primary water technology. But then when he showed up, it just accelerated all of our thoughts and strategies. So basically what we have developed is a new delivery system, which includes bulk vending, meaning that you can go to your local grocery store or convenience store and buy water that has been cleaned, purified, enhanced, structured so that it not only is safe to drink, but it's healthy, functional water, which is what I created the category, as Mark mentioned, about 20 years ago. We're also looking at delivery in the community, so we'll be able to deliver it in 3-gallon, 5-gallon containers directly to your home or office. Also, we have worked with a company out of Europe that has new bottling systems that are containerized, and we've designed those into a community bottling system. So there's no need to take water or to buy water from New York or Pennsylvania or California, which is what a lot of us do, ship it, all the way across the country or halfway across the country, putting more carbon into the air.
I was just going to say, you speak of water, but you're incredible. With what you're doing, you're going to eliminate a huge carbon imprint. Thank you so much, Merlin.
Yes, we are. In fact, we have a zero carbon imprint with the technology and the systems that we've designed.
Can you say that one more time?
A zero carbon footprint.
Wow. That's it. And, that's what I'm doing with my Humate. And then I have Humachar. That we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about that offline, where I've developed I developed technology with Los Alamos to convert coal to char and also synthetic crude oil, and we'll talk about that offline. But it's the same thing. I'm putting the carbon back into the soil. Merlin, we're running out of time.
Merlin, do some magic and rewind us 20 minutes. We want to continue talking.
No, we're gonna have to cut it because I got to do some closeouts here. And but when can you come to Arizona?
Well, you know what? I'm told that planes fly there just about every day or every other day at least.
No, so, every day, nonstop. and come on down, and you can be a guest. You can stay in my home. You can stay in the guest house. I have a beautiful home, and Alex and my guests here who stay in my home can verify that. And you're welcome to the home of the chief, the ambassador, all of the above. But thanks for coming on. Is there anything we want to add here, Mark? Are we okay?
We're right on. There's more time to come back. And
Yeah.
I mean,
we could go on all night, and we'll do that. But I do want to introduce my business associate, Alex Agnos from Beverly Hills. Thank you, Merlin. Thank you so much.
Merlin, I have a question for you. So what is that going to do with Aquafina and Dasani and all these water companies? I'm just curious. What kind of impact? Are they going to give us a problem?
Well, they probably will, but I mean, it's like technology is here to stay. It's not going away, and so we're going to disrupt their system. First of all, we're going to make healthy water because what Coke and Pepsi are selling is basically purified RO water that has no energy to it, no minerals in it, no life whatsoever.
Exactly. That's why I brought this up.
We should not be drinking it on a long-term basis. Yes, it will keep us alive, but it's not going to help us get healthy. So we need to disrupt that anyway, and so we're going to do that. And hopefully when they see the light and see the direction we're going, they'll join in with us. But as you know, in the world of business, it's always should be good to be first. And we will be there, and we'll just show them what the next generation of water delivery and water health and wellness looks like.
That's great.
That's amazing. And one more thing. So with the technology, by using what you, Mark, and having the humate, it sounds like we could do away with Monsanto, too.
How do they say that? From your lips?
Bing, 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 bing. You just won the prize, Merlin. Say it out loud from your lips to God.
Yeah, because,
come on, say it.
This isn't talked enough about.
Yeah, no, it really, that is possible. And here again, our movement is from the ground up in Iowa and all across the country. It's We the People's movement. It's time for us to step to the plate as individuals, be accountable for our own health, our own wellness.
Thank you so much. We got to send it over to the chief. Let's just say this. Donald Trump has nothing on Merlin. Soil and the chief and Dennis, between what water and good soil could do, politics have nothing. Chief, where are we going in the future?
We're going to rock and roll. Thank you, Merlin. We're going to call it a night, okay?
Okay, all the best.
Be sure and come see me.
I will.
Okay, you always got a place to stay. But anyway, we're at the end of the road, ladies and gentlemen. Kyle, we got time to tee up one more song?
We do.
Tee it up. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back at Star Worldwide with my best producer in the whole world, Kyle Pratt.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Ambassador.
Absolutely. And my friend, actually a business associate, he's in from Beverly Hills, and his name is Alex Agnos. Alex, he grew up in Wisconsin with Native Americans near Milwaukee, lots of Native American friends. And he's so into what I'm doing here that he flies in from Beverly Hills to be on my show. I think that's pretty damn cool. Alex, we're going to have to cut it off, but I want you to at least say something to our guests, if you would.
Well, I'm just going to make it brief because this has been a wonderful show today. Today, they could take the names away. Tomorrow, they're going to take your land. That's right. What it's all about.
That's right. It's a land grab.
It's a land grab. I grew up in Milwaukee, and I grew up with a lot of Native American friends. And let me tell you, everybody honors those jerseys and those mascots and those names, Blackhawks, Chiefs, Redskins. So I don't know any Indians ever in my life that do not love those names and logos. So you have to stand up and stick up for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, because that's why we're here. We're the real deal.
It's a real deal, man. You tell them.
That's right. Thank you, Alex, the Chief, Mark, Merlin. Let me say two things. My name's Bobby Newrock. I hail out of Beverly Hills and Las Vegas, Nevada. I run an empire. I'll stop everything and throw it all to the ground to hear Chief tell you two things. You're safe at home. You turn on your TV and heat. Let me tell you, as soon as they want to take it from you, they can. Never forget, sponsors out there, Chief pays so your family, your kids can know the future and their danger. Sponsors of Arizona, Nevada, Utah, call this radio station and put your pennies in, because you actually have somebody that counts. This is something people listen to. Don't forget, rap music, video games, bubble gum, soda. It only lasts seconds. Chief's telling you something from 100 years of history, 200 years of history, 300 years of history, 5,000 years of history. Come on, support the people that care about you. Chief, give us a send-off.
Thank you so much, Robert. And you're welcome in my home anytime. And I can appreciate so much for you bringing in a filming crew in here tonight and filming me, my guests, Kyle, the real deal, Star Worldwide, the Pratt family. I mean, it's pretty awesome. That's the first time that's ever happened with me, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we got to be doing something right.
Oh, you definitely are.
But thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much. Been an honor to be on the show.
Absolutely.
Water independence, water security. Everyone can have it.
Right, and we're going to do it. And that's what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about things that pertain to all Americans, Native Americans, but my love and my affinity is with Native Americans because that's where I grew up. When I was 7 years old, I got thrown in with a bunch of Navajos kids, and I learned how to speak the language, and I went to their homes and learned the Navajo culture. And shit, I'm a Navajo, man. I told you, I said I wanted to marry a Navajo, and I did. And she was a princess, and she passed away. But anyway, I guess that's it. I can't think of anything else I should say other than thank you for listening. But we always got a good show. We always will, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. And your dad can vouch for that.
Oh, yes, he could.
Oh, yeah. He knows where the real deal's headed. So I guess with that being said, Mark, Robert, all of my guests here in the studio, the lovely Jennifer McKay, avid fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, is here.
And one Cowboy fan.
Yeah, it's all right.
And Camille, hi. So with that being said, this is my send-off. Wait a minute. Hagone, Dene. That's goodbye in Navajo.
That's goodbye in Navajo. Remember, kids, learn that, and the Nazis might not get you at night.
That's right.
Hail to the Redskins.
Hail to the Redskins. Hail to all the teams that honor Native Americans. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Pratt, tell everybody why the ambassador's here.
To kick ass and save names, Ambassador.
You got it.
Thank you for listening to The Real Deal. Tune in to The Real Deal with the Ambassador and special guest hosts every Wednesday at 5 p.m. and on demand 24/7 right here on Star Worldwide Networks.